Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. There we go.
Hello, my name is Marielle, and I'm the director of the Tennessee Alliance for Economic Mobility. I'm joined with Kent Miller, Chief Program Officer at Martha O'Brien Center, and Elizabeth Adewale. She is a caregiver from Clarksville and a steering committee member with our alliance. We're honored to be here with you all today and are very excited to share our collaborative vision on how to transform Tennessee's safety net. So the Tennessee Alliance for Economic Mobility, which is comprised of 32 organizations, has developed an innovative approach to mitigate the effects of the benefits cliff and ultimately improve low-income families' economic mobility and well-being. Before we talk more about the solution, we have to dive a little bit deeper into the problem. The benefits cliff. So when families increase their income, they abruptly lose benefits. Because the value of their increased income is less than the value of their lost benefits, families are left in a worse financial situation. The benefits cliff disincentivizes caregivers from pursuing increased education and earnings. What you see on this graph here is a single parent with 2 children in Dickson County. Even if this family's household income doubled from $22,600 to $46,900, their net resources would remain the same. And as you can see, along the way, their net resources would decline sharply multiple times as they hit one benefit cliff after another. So we did a really comprehensive needs assessment that we're very proud of. Kent is showing you over here. We asked partners a lot of questions, but we're going to focus on one question today, which is what are the top challenges that caregivers face as they endeavor to support their families in thriving? And Elizabeth is going to share what we heard.
So caregivers ranked financial challenges as the top challenge they face as we try to support our families in thriving. Caregivers such as myself are very familiar with the benefits cliff. As you can see up there, 85% of the focus group participants indicated that they have all experienced the benefits cliff. And out of fear that they would lose their benefits, 63% of the caregivers reported that they had not worked more. 50% had not gotten a higher paying job. 33% had not gotten more education, and 25% had not accepted a raise. Families are making the most fiscally responsible decision for their families based on the choices that are available to them. But by doing so, a lot feel stuck, and some of them remain stuck. And we have some quotes from other caregivers that were during the focus groups. And we had a caregiver from Dickson County who said, I've actually turned down a management job before because I was going to be working more hours. So my rent was going to go up, and I was going to be paying more for childcare. A Davidson County caregiver said, I can't do nothing. I want to work more. I want to do better, but how can you? And we had a Rutherford County caregiver who said, you get so tired of going up against the wall and getting no, no, no all the time. Do you know how humiliating that is? If you've ever been in a position where you have to ask for it and then boom, you just keep getting no. It's not available. It's very heartbreaking. And we had a Montgomery County caregiver. I lost everything over $4. You have to get caught up, but you're dropped with no warning. I ended up with a $9 an hour job, even having 2 degrees, so that my son would be safe. That Montgomery County resident was me. I experienced the benefits cliff not once, but twice in the past few years. My SNAP benefits were abruptly cut off with no warning a month after I got a job, after being unemployed for about 3 months. And the second time I had surgery, and within a month of going back to work, it got cut off again. The termination letter about my benefits didn't even arrive till about over a week after my benefits were cut off. So I didn't even know they were going to be cut off. And it just leaves you hopeless. And the first time I lost my benefits because I was $4, my gross income, not my net, my gross income was $4 over the limit for a two-family household.
Thank you. All right. So as we just heard, this problem, and as you saw in the graph, is really overwhelming. A lot of people talk about the benefits cliff. A lot of people know about the benefits cliff, but when you talk about it, it's sort of like, hands up, what can we do about it? The impact is heartbreaking, like Elizabeth shared, but I'm really, really happy to share that we believe we've assembled the right group to figure out how to move families beyond the benefits cliff. So our pilot will serve families that have an income of 0 to 55,000, who have 1 to 4 children, and who are on 1 or more public benefits. We anticipate serving caregivers that are an average of 33 years old with an average of 2 children. And then based on our needs assessment, we expect about 50% will be unemployed. We'll be serving 900 families across Davidson, Dixon, Murray, Montgomery, Rutherford, Sumner, and Wilson counties. So this is our solution and our theory of change. By pairing an innovative transitional benefit with family-centered coaching, financial counseling, wraparound supports, equitable access to education and career pathways, we will demonstrate a new scalable vision for the Tennessee safety net that incentivizes employment and career development and ensures that families are stable, self-sufficient, and economically mobile.
Or another way to say it is when we provide family-centered coaching, wraparound supports, equitable access to career pathways, and a first-of-its-kind transitional benefit, then families will increase their self-sufficiency and decrease their dependence on government benefits. Our model's innovation begins with its customized supports. All families will receive financial counseling and family-centered coaching. Resource navigators will help caregivers find childcare, transportation, affordable housing, and health and wellness supports by connecting them to strong, pre-existing community-based resources. And employment and education specialists will connect caregivers to jobs and short-term training and education opportunities reflective of local career pathways in high-demand industries. All of our strategies are evidence-based and directly reflect what Middle Tennessee families said they need and will utilize to move forward. But our greatest innovation is the transitional benefit. To incentivize work, we will distribute a transitional benefit when a family's net resources decrease due to the benefits cliff through fresh food and direct payments to housing, healthcare, and childcare providers. Now, to calculate this benefit is quite complex. So during our planning grant, in just 90 days, we built a first-of-its-kind web-based transitional benefit calculator. This has never been done before. In front of you is a snapshot of our calculator, beyondthecliff.com. On the sides, you can see the different information that families would input. It includes their current benefits and their family composition. And in the middle is the graph that's generated to the family's unique situation. The dark line is the benefits cliff, and the light line is the transitional benefit. On the live site, you can hover over the light line, and it tells you the specific transitional benefit amount based off the family's income. While other benefit calculators are currently available, ours is the first to not only illustrate the problem, but also demonstrate the solution.
All right, so our pilot aligns with TANF Purpose number 2 to end the dependence of needy parents on government benefits by promoting job preparation, work, and marriage. And our proposal aligns with 6 universal TDHS outcomes. So in each county, families will be supported by a benefit specialist, a family-centered coach, a county resource navigator, and an employment and education specialist. We asked caregivers about the likelihood that they would utilize these supports and what they thought the impact of those supports would be. And what we heard was very compelling. 90% of caregivers reported that they would get a higher paying job if they knew that they would not lose their benefits. 93% said that they would work with a navigator, and 89% said that they would work with an employment and education specialist to find a better job or to enroll in education or training programs. So across our collaborative, Second Harvest, which is the largest food security partner in the state, would ensure that families have access to fresh food. Both large and small organizations that are beacons of hope in their communities will house family-centered coaches and county resource navigators to support families. United Way of Middle Tennessee will ensure that families have access to financial counseling. We're partnering with a lot of TCATs and community colleges to ensure that families are increasing their education. And we'll be working with employment partners like Workforce Essentials to support families in gaining or increasing employment. All right, so getting to the outcomes, what are we hoping to achieve? Within 12 months, 70% of families will increase their knowledge of, access to, and utilization of community resources, as well as their communication and cohesion. 70% of families will also increase their participation or enrollment in job training and education opportunities. Within 24 months, 60% of families will expand their networks and connections to other families. And they'll also increase their financial empowerment or net resources. Upon exit, 50% of families will increase their self-sufficiency and well-being by 10% on the Arizona Self-Sufficiency Matrix, and they'll also increase their earned income and wage benefits beyond one or more benefits cliffs. As a result, families in this pilot will increase their economic status and stability, their family engagement, and they will decrease their psychological distress.
For our budget, our two largest categories of expenses are specific assistance to individuals, which reflects the transitional benefit, and partners' professional fees and awards, which reflects the direct client supports our partners will provide to families. This means the majority of our budget is going to ensure that our families have the resources and the people they need most to move forward. We have committed nearly $4 million for in-kind. This reflects partners' anticipated supports through programs and services and 39,000 volunteer hours. We have also identified over $8 million in potential non-federal and state resources and over $26 million in state and federal resources that could be leveraged to support our families over these 3 years. Making a short-term investment in Tennessee families makes fiscal sense. For every family that moves beyond one cliff in just 3 years, we anticipate over $56,000 in personal and societal savings. This means based off the average cost of participant, in just 3 years, a family will demonstrate a 2-to-1 return on investment. And if we assume that caregiver continues to work for 30 years throughout their career, then this investment demonstrates a 20-to-1 return. Based off this anticipated return and our model's anticipated impact, we are extremely confident in our ability to sustain this effort beyond this grant. We will hire 2 new development staff with our own funds from Martha O'Brien to help in this work. And Martha O'Brien and our partners have long-standing relationships with national foundations and corporations, as demonstrated on this slide, and have a proven track record for developing, scaling, and sustaining success.
So because of this opportunity from the state, caregivers like myself have been able to share our stories and spotlight how the benefits cliff will limit our family's potential. I'm here with the Martha O'Brien Center because I don't want other families to go through what I've been through. We caregivers, we have dreams, just like everybody else in this room. We have big dreams, we have small dreams. We want to go back to school, we want to own our own homes, we want to be able to send our kids off to college and be able to afford their expenses. As a fellow mom on the project said, her name is Danielle, people heal when they feel heard. So today, I'm asking that you hear our collective voices. We desire to grow, we want to work, and we want to thrive. And we are ready for this change. So I'm hoping that you will work together with us to demonstrate a new way forward for our families and our children's futures. Thank you for listening to us.
So, can I ask you to say more about this transitional benefit? I will tell you that that is the most innovative thing that we've heard so far today. I need you to share with us a little bit more about how it works, and also have you thought about whether or not the transitional benefit would encumber the asset limit of a program, which all the programs count the assets that are available too, and would the transitional benefit encumber that asset limit? Have you thought about that?
So we worked through a multitude of partners to really develop this unique calculator. One of those was the Federal Reserve out of Atlanta, who really helped us think this thing through thoroughly. The reason that we are directly providing supports through food security, through Second Harvest, so fresh food, vegetables, fruit, milk, dairy, along with direct payments to childcare, housing, and healthcare, is so that we can avoid that cliff effect. We were very intentional about that, and it is very complicated. You actually have a snowballed effect. So that was very intentional, but we also wanted to directly reflect the decreased aid that families were receiving in government benefits. So we looked at Medicaid, we looked at SNAP, we looked at housing and child care vouchers. We thought that might happen.
Always in the data. But I guess my question would be, how are Tennesseans to be made aware of this resource? Is this something that somebody could help them, walk through it with them, or something that they can do with your staff? Or how can you really just incent or facilitate the use of this tool? Because this really is fantastic.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And our hope is to, we built this with the goal that this does bring awareness to the benefits cliff, specifically for Middle Tennessee. It is right now specific only to our 7 counties that we are partnering with, but we will put this out there. We can build it for all Tennessee counties if that's desired. So we do want families to use this directly, but specifically, this is a common strategy. There are other benefit cliff calculators that are out there. And the strategy is that, well, if you understand what you're up against, then you can plan ahead. Then you can make the right decision for your family. But the reality is that gap's $20,000. That does not incentivize you to move forward. That does not incentivize you to increase your education or get a better job. What we are trying to do with this transitional benefit in a very short amount of time, so the 3 years of this grant, is to rapidly incentivize families to move forward, to invest in themselves during that time, so that way they can move their families beyond a cliff. Like, that's a very intentional outcome that we've created there, because it has such a long-lasting impact on that family. That's forever. It impacts the caregiver, but it also impacts the children. They have more supports, more resources. They're more likely to be healthy. They're more likely to do better in school. They're more likely to go on to college and then one day get a great job for themselves. This is a 2-generational approach to ending generational poverty.
Hello. Sorry about that. Thank you once again. Second time today, I'm having a tough time sitting in my seat, so I really appreciate the message that was brought. 3 slides after this, you have a timeline: short-term outcomes, medium-term outcomes, long-term outcomes. Tell me about the accountability that would be associated with this to ensure that families are either keeping this pace or on a similar pace to getting us where we need to be.
So we believe strongly in taking a strengths-based approach with our families, which means that they set their own goals. So when we created these outcomes, we really put them in front of our families. I mean, our focus groups were intentional about sharing this is what our intended impact is, to make sure that they had approval of what these outcomes look like. So from a short-term expectation, it really is more about the process. It's about increasing their understanding, their connectedness to other families, and then their participation in educational and training opportunities. And then it becomes a little more rich and diverse, but ultimately, we want to make sure that the families participating in this model, and we're really trying to create a demonstration site. We took this idea of casting a new vision for the Tennessee safety net very seriously. So we do anticipate that from day one, that one of our expectations and criteria for participation is that desire for increased employment and or increased education. So that will be something that their family coach will work with them on in a very regular fashion. Most families will receive family-centered coaching in between 1 week and 1 month intervals. So that way it's very rapid. It's very common where you're coming back to what are the family's goals, but then also what are the concrete steps that we're taking towards education and employment.
On the oversight level, if that was part of your question related to the collaborative, we'll have Martha O'Brien Center's board will provide financial oversight, but we'll have a steering committee and a caregiver advisory committee that are providing programmatic oversight. And then internally as a collaborative, we'll have a data team that's really going to drive continuous quality improvement and ensure compliance. And part of that obviously is doing onboarding and training and technical assistance, but it's also to establish that culture. So we will have quarterly quality improvement meetings that helps establish that culture that really gets curious about data, that wants to learn from data to support families. Hope that's a little support.
That does, and just realizing the 60-month limit to the program, where we are, I'm sensing the situation. Someone doesn't succeed after the 24 months, and how we are able to engage them and keep them in the program and keep them going forward. And hopefully that's a part of the program. I didn't see it, but I'm sure that could be 2.0 or an evaluation as you look over the next 3 years.
Absolutely. And I think the 32 partners that we have really have long-term history of meeting clients where they are and providing those specific needs. So we know sometimes things aren't quite as linear as you hope, but that doesn't mean that that's the end of this journey. And the organization I work for, the Martha O'Brien Center, that's the heart of who we are. We're a 126 years old agency. We have a dove as our logo because the idea is that when Noah was on the ark, the dove went out 3 times, and sometimes it takes 3 attempts before we all find the ground that we're looking for.
Help me understand the relationship between this project and Second Harvest. My experience, having grown up in eastern North Carolina where the 4 food groups were chicken, pork, collards, and Coca-Cola. Second Harvest could have talked to my family until they were green in the face, and that wasn't what we were going to eat. And so is that a reason, if part of the benefits cliff mitigation is healthy food from Second Harvest, is that realistic?
So Second Harvest does provide support to many emergency food banks throughout the city or throughout our state. And I think we all have become a little familiar with what that staple looks like. So you have your canned tomatoes and your canned vegetables and your peanut butter. And I've spent a lot of time in the food bank, especially during the beginning of the pandemic. This is not that same food. So this is fresh dairy, fresh milk, vegetables, fruit, protein. It's all of the things that we would buy when we go to the grocery store. We recognize it might not be every single thing that a family wants, but it's not meant to represent their whole grocery bill. It's meant to be the staples, the things that you can really build meals around. And I really also want to give a shout out to Second Harvest, because the way that we found all of these great community partners through Middle Tennessee is that they were already Second Harvest partners. The original community-based organizations are already on the front line, meeting clients where they're at. They really are one of those beacons in Tennessee.
Well, I agree. I'm the president of the Second Harvest Fan Club, and but I also know that I'm trying to figure out if the food that Second Harvest is going to provide is a part of that financial calculation that you've got. Then people are not. My fear is that people are going to look at the cash they've got, not whether there's some food available that they're not going to have to buy. And that's not a calculation that anybody in my hometown or my family would have made. We'd have looked at the amount of money that's going to come in, and then we'd figure out how much we could buy for that. So I'm just, is part of the financial mitigation food that's going to be available to them that they don't have to buy? Is that?
Yes,
Yeah,
and then
okay.
they have additional net resources available because of the transitional benefit. That
So-
took me a minute.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to. I assume you made a statement about wraparound services. I assume there's a ton of education that goes with helping people understand that this is food you don't have to buy. So it is money back in your pocket. Again, and I'm speaking from dirt poor background. I understand my mindset when I was growing up. My parents.
No, absolutely. I think that we recognize with everything that we were doing, there's also that educational component. And again, we want to say, this is the first time this has been attempted. So there are going to be learning experiences along the way, and it might be a little less colored greens, a little more Coca-Cola. But we have to figure out what is that right equation to ensure that this is something that really moves and incentivizes. The most important thing we want to hear today is that this is designed to incentivize families to move forward.
All right, I too am pretty jazzed about your website. Although I didn't get on it during this, Dr. House. My question is about the math and how you project need and basically how do we know we're going to be able to afford all of this? So, if you're going to have to support a family for a year or 3 years, for a little bit or a lot, this seems like a really wide range. So how are your projections going?
We agree. It is a very wide range. We literally did hundreds of projections as to what we anticipated this benefit would look like in each county that we served. And then ultimately, we took the most extreme form of what that benefit could look like with the assumption that families on average would receive this benefit for 2.5 years. We recognize there's a short window on the startup and probably a short window at the end is for data and evaluation purposes. We anticipate that benefit on average will be about $5,500 per year. Now that said, as you look at this graph, you can tell that there are times before you actually hit the transitional benefit where it will not be utilized, and there will be times after. So I do want to say very transparently, we will probably ask for a budget modification at some point during this journey. We're here for 3 more minutes, but the website's up all day.